the like warrior from like World War II or something.
Yeah, exactly. He was like an Air Force pilot in Poland, and like when they got kind of
Attacked.
when they got invaded and sort of the Air Force was dismantled and stuff, he was like a prisoner of war, and then he managed to eventually escape to the UK and joined the Royal Air Force in the UK.
Damn.
So,
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of these like cool stories about people joining the Air Force that I really wonder how much of that is ever going. It's probably never going to be the same, just because of like how wars have kind of gotten away from the ground conflicts, and like if you have an Air Force, you're probably trying to not do things to get the other country to like think about nuking you.
yeah, and I think there's a big element to which like the kind of propaganda of war has changed a lot as well. Like we don't create these kind of stories of glorification, or at least we don't like absorb them in the same way as we kind of used to. History isn't created in the same way.
Honestly, I think like the closest thing, the most relevant thing our generation has to that experience and that like that hero worship has to be like Star Wars. Like right? like the dogfights, and like that's essentially what the Battlefront games are all about. And people have like these fierce allegiances. No, fuck you. You can't side with the Empire about this. They're literal Nazis.
Yeah, I mean it's not a crazy comparison, because like a lot of what was kind of portrayed to like the average Joe back home during the war was like these kind of propaganda videos that would like broadcast at cinemas, and they were kind of crafted by like film directors and all that kind of stuff. So like, you probably had a lot of the same kinds of stories, like personalities that were elevated to kind of fictionalized levels and stuff like that. I haven't really thought about it that way, but definitely seems about right.
Yeah, like where the whole idea of Empire, and then there's Empire rebels, and then there's just like the smugglers and shit caught in between.
Yeah.
Like you never get. I think that's what. So I've never watched The Mandalorian. I hear it's good. I hear it's cool, but I don't know it. I hear one of the things that's really good about it is that it fleshes out the world, kind of like puts a little bit more nuance to like the sides, like what's it like living with the Empire, what's it like being with the rebels. But just like from the movies, I think the most you get in like the outside world looking in is like probably in like The Last Jedi or in The Rise of Skywalker, where they're like the kids talking about, oh, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm playing with these toys, take that, Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's funny to see cinema go kind of meta in that way to try and like use it as a way to flesh out the universe, but it's definitely very cheesy. But I think one of the interesting things about the Star Wars universe is that they like there were kind of hundreds of books that people have made to flesh out this
that George Lucas also wrote, like, but a lot of them just got retconned when they were bought out by Disney.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, like streamlining in order to kind of craft the things that you can best monetize makes sense for a giant like Disney. But I think it's obviously one of those things where like you get into this big kind of clash between like what is the kind of initial core fan base's view of like the canon versus like what is the kind of owner of that franchise's view of it.
And is that fan base going to like sustain you monetarily for going into the future? But because like Star Wars also was just, it was a merchandising like gold mine. Just everybody wanted everything that looked remotely Star Wars. I was at an opera in Kyiv, like when I first got to Ukraine, and it was Faust, and
nice.
It was interesting. So it was the first time I had watched Faust. I have heard about it. I have like a rough understanding of the story, but the director for this version of it decided that he wanted to make it a little bit more palatable to younger audiences, and so he put like these like weird Star Wars generators in Faust's research lab. At some point, when like Mephistopheles is schmoozing around like the party guests, he like pulls out his phone and he like takes a fucking like mocking selfie, like eh. It was the worst thing I had ever seen. It made me hate a production I heard was just like fantastic. It's all about the hubris of man and like.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to adapt it with like the most shallow veneer of trying to pander to a younger audience, and it just came off so bad. And I feel so bad because like the performers were really good, the dancing was really cool, the singing was good.
But that kind of level of being out of touch was jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen a few operas, but I haven't seen any that were like massively adapted. I'd be interested to see what that's like actually. I've only ever seen like the really kind of classical settings or the modern operas in their intended setting.
I think it's one of the things that is a constant fear. Like, as we get older, are we going to be as out of touch as it seems the previous generations have been? Both with like things that are cool and like, you know, the proper way to like rear a child, and you know the proper way to market something and that's valuable as opposed to something that is just like, you know, a cash grab.
Yeah, I spent some time like thinking about education as a consultant of like kind of cutting edge tech and like basically how it could be used to kind of augment, supplement like education. And like one of the biggest things kind of generationally is that like the pace of change is just accelerating. So building kind of tools by which you can help people learn and keep up to date basically as things progress is like one of the biggest challenges of our era. I don't think we're solving it necessarily at a pace that is as the pace that is required, but like I think for sure like we're kind of already adapted to this idea that like we kind of have to constantly be able to teach ourselves new things, like, you know, new programs or apps that are unlocked, like new kind of technologies that are come out.
Especially because like if we're trying to be constantly building things that are better, they're going to be less likely to break, and so you don't need to buy it as often. And so like, you know, the convenience of all these new things that are constantly coming out, you kind of have to lose sight at some point, just because like new things keep coming out, to where you often forget about like quality and like the purpose of creating a functional product that's supposed to be consumed by people, or that's supposed to be used to better people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a massive gap between the kind of the like direction that monetization and like, you know, venture capital model and stuff pushes companies and technology development relative to what is actually like net positive, beneficial for society. I think there are some super weird side effects to like, I guess, over-indexing on the opinions of venture capitalists and over-indexing on like certain types of growth markers that don't necessarily like push society forward, which is why you have like so many like infinite ways of entertaining yourself and like, you know, like vastly fewer resources going towards like solving big problems in some areas.